Okay, everybody, we're going to pick up where we left off in class the other day when we were interrupted by that survey. So we're going to talk about Koch's postulates. So like I was saying in class, Koch's postulates are these ways that you can determine that a microorganism is definitively the cause of some disease. So, and I'll show that same picture I showed in class, but you have to find the thing you think is causing the disease in the organism, but you should not find it in healthy organisms, right? So, and that should be somewhat intuitive to you. You should find the thing you think is causing the disease in the thing that is sick, but you should not find it in something that is not sick. Then you should be able to isolate the thing that you think is causing it and grow it in pure culture. Grow it by itself. You should be able to pull the thing out if you found it and grow it up on a petri plate by itself. Then, if you take that thing that you've grown in pure culture and you inject it into a healthy organism, then that healthy organism should get the disease. And then, kind of as a recapitulation or starting over with this process a little bit, you should then be able to pull it out of that organism and identify it again in the healthy organism. So I think these pictures should be somewhat helpful. So you have this diseased mouse over here, and you pull out this thing that you think is causing it. You pull out this thing that you think is causing it, and you're able to grow it in pure culture, whereas in a healthy organism, in a healthy animal, you would not find this thing at all. It wouldn't be there. When you try to put it onto it, when you plate it, when you grow it up on a petri plate, nothing grows. Whereas with the diseased organism, you get this definitive growth pattern here. Okay? This is the thing you think is causing it, so you take that, you input it into another healthy organism, and that organism gets the disease as well. So after this organism gets the disease, you should be able then to pull out the same stuff that you think was causing it and grow it on a culture plate and find the same exact thing you found up here. Okay, so this is Koch's postulates. They are a way of definitively determining that a microorganism is pathogenic or that a microorganism is disease-causing. So emerging diseases are a field of epidemiology. Remember epidemiology we talked about in class. It's the study of who, what, where, how, when, and why of diseases. And emerging diseases are just, new diseases. So you've got avian influenza, you've got bird flu, H5N1, you've got swine flu, H1N1, and you've got SARS. And remember these H5N1s, this is hemagglutinin and this is neuraminidase. And these are just different kinds of spikes, different kinds of surface proteins that the virus can have on them. And you also have sort of within this category, the subcategory of re-emerging diseases. Diseases that have reappeared after going away. So these re-emerging diseases are coming back. Emerging diseases have never been seen before. Re-emerging diseases are coming back after having not been seen for a long time. So Candida aureus is one of my favorite emerging diseases right now. It was first found in Japan, and it's making its way to the United States. I think the statistics I'd seen said that there was like 100 cases or something like that. And it's often transmitted nosocomially. This is a term I want you to know. Nosocomially. Well, this means that you get it when you go to the hospital for something else. So somebody else in the hospital has this, and you picked it up, or maybe something else happens, and you manage to pick up this infection in the hospital, and that's nosocomially, or a nosocomial infection, and that's a word that I would like you all to know. So we also have re-emerging diseases, in no small part thanks to the anti-vax community. who claim things like, vaccinations give you autism, as though that would be the worst thing in the world. And they have all of these really deadly chemicals inside of them, and they're really bad for you. And let me be the first to tell you, this anti-vax stuff is totally bunk. You should get vaccinated. You should get your kids vaccinated, because if you don't, it compromises what's called herd immunity. So if you have a certain proportion of the population who is immune to a disease, the disease will not be able to take hold. However, if you have even a small percentage of the population that is not immune, the disease is going to be able to mutate. The disease is going to be able to spread through the population because a few people have it. And that's what causes, that's why refusal to vaccinate causes the reemergence of diseases that we had gotten rid of. Elderly people, small children, people who are immunocompromised, who cannot vaccinate are the most at risk of these diseases because, again, they get into the population, they mutate, and then they get to people who are unable to protect themselves. And like I said, letting the disease reside in these hosts is very dangerous because it will change. It will become more virulent. It will become more deadly. It will get into the population. So, switching gears a little bit, there's also this problem of antibiotic resistant with reemerging diseases. Because bacteria become resistant very quickly to these things, they start to become, I wouldn't say deadlier, but they get to the point where they can't be killed by antibiotics. So penicillin was initially started using around 1942. It was discovered years earlier than that, but you had resistant bacteria as short as 4 years later. You had bacteria that were resistant almost immediately to these antibiotics. And humans don't become resistant to the antibiotic drugs. The pathogens become resistant to them. So I just want to make very clear, it's not the humans that are changing, it's the bugs that are changing. There are resistant strains of tuberculosis and Staphylococcus aureus, and both of those things are of particular concern. You should kind of have some context for the TB and why that's going to be a really bad thing if we can't treat that. And the best way to fight antibiotic resistance is by using antibiotics wisely, which means probably using them less often than we have been. If you have an earache, maybe just wait it out instead of having a chance for all of the bacteria up there to just become resistant to any antibiotics. So I have some advice. If you're given an antibiotic, take all of them. Take all the antibiotics that you're given. Don't just stop taking them when you feel better, which is what a lot of people wind up doing. You have not won yet. You have not killed the bacteria yet. You've only slowed it down. So if you don't take the entire dose, you're going to wind up with bacteria that are just resistant to that antibiotic. And antibiotics are not good against every kind of infection. So I saw some pretty interesting ideas in that antibiotic study discussion we had, but antibiotics do not work against things like viruses. So don't expect antibiotics to work for everything. Don't save antibiotics if you happen to wind up with extras, and don't take them for a different infection. They might not be useful at all, and they will only hurt you if they have not been prescribed specifically for your ailment. And also be careful if you're on birth control and you start taking antibiotics. Antibiotics can interfere with certain types of birth control. So that's definitely something that everybody should know, okay? If you are on birth control and you are on antibiotics, there is a chance that your birth control will not work anymore. So be very cautious of that. So we watched a really cool video in class about bacteria becoming resistant to antibiotic drugs. But basically what happens is these white cells here, these white colonies, I should say, they're not cells. These white colonies are drug resistant. Okay, they have developed a mutation, or maybe they picked up a plasmid so that they are totally resistant to whatever antibiotic you're putting them in. And what happens is they wind up surviving. So you can kill away all these other non-drug resistant ones, and these several drug resistant ones wind up surviving and propagating. So if you remove, even if you get rid of the antibiotic treatment here, you're still going to wind up with some of these, but most of your population now is totally resistant to the antibiotic drug. So if you have a drug-resistant mutant, you want to kill it as quickly, as soon as possible, and that's why you have to take the entire course of your medication so that you don't wind up with any of these just propagating.